record number of material to pre-treat the roadways and the bridges around to try to do the best we could to get ahead of what Mother Nature was doing.
Something feels off about what's unfolding across America right now. We're not just talking about cold weather here. We're talking about ice storms, blizzards, and frozen landscapes appearing in places that should never see this kind of winter. But here's what really stands out: the suddenness of it all. No warning, no gradual shift, just chaos dropping like a hammer overnight. Entire states brought to their knees, infrastructure crumbling, landscapes transformed in mere hours. And there's one piece of this puzzle most people are missing: the pattern. These aren't random disasters. They keep showing up over and over at pivotal moments, exactly the way ancient warnings predicted they would. What you're about to see goes beyond extreme weather reports and scientific explanations. You'll discover why millions of people are connecting these events to biblical prophecy, and why the words Jesus spoke about the end times are hitting differently than ever before. This isn't just another climate emergency. This might be evidence that something far greater is already in motion. Highways vanish beneath thick blankets of ice and snow. Roofs buckle under the crushing weight of freezing temperatures. Trees that stood strong for generations are snapping like twigs, blocking streets and severing power lines. The winter storms that kicked off 2026 triggered widespread blackouts, hitting Tennessee, Texas, and Louisiana especially hard. Thousands of homes went dark right as temperatures plunged to life-threatening lows, grinding transportation to a halt and bringing daily life to a near-complete standstill. Entire communities found themselves cut off from the outside world. Infrastructure built for typical conditions buckled under relentless pressure. Electrical cables short-circuited and broke apart, plunging whole neighborhoods into cold, unforgiving darkness. Heating systems failed at the worst possible moment. Emergency crews couldn't reach people because roads were impassable and routes were shut down. As communication networks collapsed, every pillar holding up modern life started falling one after another. Thousands were trapped inside their own homes, families huddled together for warmth, counting every hour in exhausting uncertainty. Nobody knew when the power would return, or if the deep freeze had finally passed. Fear didn't explode into visible chaos. It crept quietly into everyone's minds, creating this overwhelming sense that everything we depend on is actually fragile. That moment reminded many people of the warning in Luke 21 verse 26, where Jesus said people would be overwhelmed with fear about what's coming upon the world. It's not about instant destruction. It's about this deep unease that settles in when the familiar systems we trust stop working the way they're supposed to. What people are facing isn't just physical cold. It's a stark awareness of their own human limitations. Winter stops being just a weather event in moments like this. It becomes a test of endurance and faith. When the lights go out, when roads disappear, when comfort falls silent, people are forced to ask themselves, what actually holds us together? And sometimes it's precisely this cold and this waiting that forces us to pause, reflect, and notice the subtle signs unfolding all around us. If harsh winter exposed how fragile man-made systems really are, what came next revealed an even deeper disturbance within creation itself. Along the shores of Lake Michigan, in shallow waters near the coast, people witnessed cold-blooded creatures moving across the ice. They weren't fleeing, they weren't hunting, they weren't behaving the way they should. What made this scene so striking was that no catastrophe forced them there. No major storm, no earthquake, no violent event. Just a quiet shift in climate, enough to push a creature into a place where it doesn't belong. Everything happened without noise, yet it planted this deep unease in those who witnessed it. Scientists offered explanations about dropping temperatures, survival reflexes, unusual behaviors emerging from environmental changes. But for many watching from afar, the bigger question remains: if nature's powerful survival instincts can be disrupted, what's really changing beneath the surface? When an organism shows up where it can't properly survive, is that a sign that order itself is being thrown off balance? Scripture speaks of times like these, not when everything collapses instantly, but when chaos starts creeping into the very fabric of creation.
Romans 8 verse 22 says the creation has been groaning and suffering until now. It's not a verbal cry, it's images that make you stop and think. So the question isn't how the organism survived on the ice. The real question is, why are there more and more signs that creation is being pushed beyond the limits it was designed for? And if nature is protesting, are humans listening? While many were still trying to process what was happening on the surface, freezing, collapse, and creation's disharmony, another sign erupted suddenly from the depths. At Kilauea, 2 massive columns of lava shot straight up into the sky without warning. This wasn't a prolonged eruption lasting days like we usually see. This was a violent burst so intense it caught observers completely off guard. The event unfolded rapidly and then stopped just as abruptly, as if the Earth had just released some long-suppressed pressure. Lava rose to near-record levels, not spreading out or immediately destroying anything, but shooting straight upward, forming enormous pillars of fire. It was as though the Earth was breathing, not to destroy, but to reveal what's happening within. Instead of an extended catastrophe, it was a moment of revelation. The pressure had built up and needed release. What's remarkable is how fast everything happened. It all unfolded faster than human reaction time. Modern monitoring systems, believed capable of control and warning, showed their clear limitations against nature's power. Humans can measure and analyze, but we can't command what's moving in the underground depths. More importantly, this wasn't a destructive explosion. It didn't tear everything around it apart. It didn't mark an immediate ending either. Instead, it showed that movement continues actively beneath the surface, a fundamental order being shaken. When pressure keeps building and releasing, it's a sign of a system that's never been stable. Scripture mentions times like these. Joel 2 verse 30 says, "I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth, blood and fire and columns of smoke." In the face of great upheaval, the divine doesn't always act with immediate destruction. Sometimes clear enough signs are given to awaken us, strong enough to make people stop and reflect. And when fire rises from within, the question is no longer what just happened, but what we're being warned about. And as the fire dies down, the next sign doesn't arrive with noise or light, but in silence, unfolding gradually in quiet. In many areas of California, the ground didn't shake. There were no explosions or clear warnings. It simply collapsed. In a fleeting instant, what was once solid earth opened up, revealing a deep, cold void. Roads vanished as if they never existed. Homes and cars were swallowed, leaving empty spaces where security once stood. No smoke, no loud noise, just disappearance. This silence struck many harder than any noisy disaster, because when ground collapses without warning, people realize they no longer have time to react. The panic didn't come from the scale of each individual sinkhole, but from the unanswered question, where does this stop? People watched, fearing the next collapse could be the road they drive every day, the house they're standing in front of, or the very ground beneath your feet. Fear doesn't explode, it lingers, taking root in the mind like an unshakable sense of dread. The scariest part isn't just the collapse that's happened, but the feeling that familiar foundations are no longer trustworthy. When what was once considered most stable starts crumbling from within, every notion of security wavers, not because people didn't build strong enough, but because there are hidden factors eroding foundations that are invisible to the naked eye. Scripture describes such moments with powerful yet precise language. Isaiah 24 verse 19 states, "The earth is broken up, the earth is split asunder, the earth is violently shaken." This isn't just an image of physical collapse, but a warning about what appears solid yet is weakened from within. Before everything fully collapses, cracks often appear quietly, scattered and easy to overlook. And as those cracks multiply, the question isn't why the ground is collapsing, but rather, what have we placed our trust in, and is that foundation truly solid? While other signs appear on land and in the skies, another shift is unfolding far from where most people are looking, along the frozen waters of Alaska. Here, massive icebergs, long seen as symbols of stability and permanence, begin flipping without warning. No storms, no collisions, no dramatic alerts. The ocean remains calm, but within moments, a block of ice weighing millions of tons slowly rotates, completely inverting itself. What catches attention isn't just the movement, but what's revealed when the iceberg flips. The underside, hidden in darkness for decades, even centuries, is suddenly exposed to light for the first time. Dark layers of sediment, rock fragments, ancient algae, and traces of marine life trapped for ages become visible. The scene is quiet and almost reverent, but deeply unsettling, as if something preserved from the past is being forced into the present. Scientifically, the process can be explained. As ice melts unevenly, an iceberg's center of gravity shifts until balance can no longer be maintained, making the flip inevitable. Yet for those witnessing it, the explanation does little to ease the unease. The deeper concern isn't how the ice rotates, but how often and why now so many hidden layers are suddenly coming into view. This change happens without destruction, without noise, and without immediate loss, but it's irreversible. Once the bottom is exposed, it can't return to its previous state. What was once sealed and preserved by ice enters a new phase where light, water, and time begin reshaping it. Throughout Scripture, moments of revelation are often described this way, not as instant collapse, but as exposure before judgment or transformation. What's hidden comes to light. Stability on the surface doesn't mean balance underneath. So the question isn't why ice melts and flips. That's always been possible. The real question is, why right now are so many things that were once hidden being uncovered at the same time? And if even ancient layers of ice are flipping to reveal what they held, how much more on land, in oceans, and within human life is approaching its moment of exposure? While ice flips and hidden layers are exposed in the far north, another sign unfolds quietly in the heart of the American landscape. In the mountain ranges of Colorado and Wyoming, scientists have observed something unexpected. The ground itself is rising and falling in slow, measurable cycles. These mountains aren't erupting, cracking, or collapsing. They're moving, almost breathing, expanding upward and then settling back down over time. What makes this phenomenon unsettling isn't its speed, but its silence. No earthquakes announce the change, no tremors felt by nearby communities, no explosions or visible destruction. Instead, the Earth shifts gradually, constantly, as if responding to pressure building deep beneath the surface. Instruments detect movement, but human senses barely feel anything. The surface appears calm, even stable, while forces underneath continue their unseen work. Geologists explain these movements are caused by changes of pressure within Earth's crust, magma redistribution, mantle dynamics, and deep structural adjustments. Yet explanations don't remove the deeper unease, because this isn't sudden violence, it's persistent movement, not chaos, but tension. The mountains aren't crumbling, but they're not at rest either. This silent motion carries its own weight. When ground beneath vast mountain ranges rises and falls without warning or sound, it challenges the idea that stability means stillness. Something can appear unchanged on the surface while constantly shifting below, and that reality is far harder to grasp than a single dramatic disaster. In Scripture, this kind of movement isn't unknown. Psalm 114 verse 4 says, "The mountains skipped like rams, the hills like lambs." The verse doesn't describe destruction, but responsiveness, creation reacting to forces beyond human control.